I was a responding officer during the Bayside Mall incident. Or, to some of you, you might know it as the Miami Mall alien incident, or something along those lines. I have told absolutely no one at all. Not officially. Not even my wife. I would have been putting her in danger if I did, but that isn't a problem anymore. I won't go into useless detail on why, but it just does not matter anymore if I talk about this anywhere. All I ever told her that day was that there was crowd panic, nothing serious. Just told her the same story that the news went with. Just dumbass teenagers setting off fireworks, drunk as shit, starting fights with people, and they caused a mass panic. That is what we were told to say. That is what they wrote in the report that we all signed. I've signed a lot of bullshit in my years, but that one felt like swallowing a razor. I was already downtown that night before the incident happened. I got called in real early because of the fireworks complaints and crowd noise. It was New Year's after all, and Bayside gets rowdy for those who don't know. It isn't the kind of place you'd swing by casually to relax. I was posted just a block off Biscayne when the first 911 report came in. The call was pretty garbled, to tell the truth. Someone was just ranting something about people collapsing in the food court. I think it was a middle-aged woman, they said. They sent me and my patrol partner Torres inside to check up on what was happening. Dispatch just kept calling it a disturbance when talking to us, but something in the voice did not match the language. She sounded off somehow, but I'm not sure how to fully explain it. Too calm maybe, or too slow. Torres picked up on it pretty quickly too. We joked about it at first, that is why I remembered it. He said something like, maybe Dispatch had one too many mimosas, but the joke didn't land. The closer we got, the quieter the city felt. I don't mean the usual lull between fireworks. I mean quiet, like the sound had been scooped out of the air. If you live here, you know this is a busy-ass place, so a total absence of noise is strange. I remember walking up the steps into the plaza and seeing kids running, but not screaming. Some of them looked like they didn't even know why they were running. Others were frozen in place, twitching like they were just glitching out, eyes wide, mouths open like they wanted to scream but forgot how. Torres went up ahead of me first. I stayed closer to the edge of the crowd. That is when I saw the first body that day. The guy was male, maybe in his mid-20s at most from what I could tell. He was slumped against a pillar like he just sat down and never got back up again. His hands were covered in blood, but not from any wounds that I could see. Maybe he had some, but they weren't visible to me at that moment. It was like he'd just, I don't know, leaked out of his skin maybe. He had some on his face too, so maybe he used his hands to try and stop a nosebleed or something. I leaned into him and checked for a pulse. He was cold, but his eyes were open, and not like dead open either. It honestly looked like he was still awake, like he died mid-thought. I remember all of this so vividly, every single detail, because it is all I can think about anymore. When you think about something that much, you just can't help but retain those small details. The moment I radioed for backup, my comms crackled. I heard the crackle of static, followed then by that high-pitched E-tone that you get before feedback. Except it didn't stop. It dug into my jaw like dental drills, and it really made my teeth hurt. Torres' voice came through, but it was kind of distorted. Seems strange because usually there will be never any kind of interference around here, and our equipment is checked thoroughly before our shifts. I think he said something like, "Don't come up here," but the feed died before I could confirm with him. I looked around. That's when I noticed the glass. The storefronts, every last one of them, were covered in this fine film, like condensation but wrong. It looked more like the inside of a freezer after a door has been left open too long. Some of them had patterns forming in the fog, swirls and spirals, looking almost like math symbols, like fingerprints made by something that did not have fingers. The people still inside were standing still. By now they weren't hiding or screaming or anything like that. They were just standing. Some of them looked like they were listening to something. One woman was mouthing words I couldn't hear. She was smiling, blood was pouring out of both ears. I started toward the escalator when I heard this deep, droning sound. It wasn't anything mechanical. It was organic, but too big and too deep to ever be made by a human. It came from inside the floor. Not below the floor, but inside it. Then the lights flickered and dimmed. Everything shifted like a depth perception trick. You know when your eyes adjust to darkness, but it takes a while, and you suddenly realize that there is a shape in the corner of the room once they have. It was like that, but all over. The air went heavy. My bones hurt. I saw something then. I didn't see the thing everyone else keeps talking about. I didn't see the 10-foot alien or whatever. Not directly, anyway. What I saw was the space around the alien or creature trying not to be affected by its presence. It was like light was avoiding the spot it was standing in, and space actually bent around the thing. It was like gravity did not know what to do with it. I only caught a glimpse. It was tall, sure, but not in a big guy way. It was wrong in every proportion. Its movement was like frames skipping in a video. First here, then forward, then even further. It didn't walk in any kind of way. Just kept skipping forward like that. I never saw it just move fluidly. At one point, I thought that there were two of them. Then I realized I was seeing it from multiple angles at the same time. I don't know how to explain that or how the fuck that is possible, but that is what I saw. Torres suddenly came stumbling down the escalator all on his own. His face was pale. There was a wet stain down one leg. If I wasn't scared out of my mind, and the fact that I might have done it too, I would have made a joke about him pissing his pants. He didn't make eye contact with me when he reached my floor. He just kept whispering and said my name over and over to himself, or maybe to me, I don't know. I tried to help him outside the door, just to get him some fresh air or something, but he jerked back suddenly and clawed at his own neck. He ripped his radio right out and smashed it on the tile. I tried to calm him down, but he kept screaming, "I won't answer it. I won't answer it." That is when two men came in. Let me be clear. These guys were not cops and not EMS or anything of the sort. They were wearing black coats with no patches on. They were also wearing earpieces. One of them flashed a badge to me, but not a badge I've ever seen. Normally, I would have contested this or stopped them, but I had bigger fish to fry with my partner losing his mind, and I alone had no chance at controlling the situation at hand. The guys did not even glance at the bodies. One of them just pointed at Torres and said, "He's not viable." They started walking toward me and Torres, telling me they needed to help him. It just felt like everyone that day had lost their damn minds. I told them to back the fuck up and that I would shoot unless they properly identified themselves. But a third guy that I did not see come in grabbed me from behind before I could draw my firearm. One of the other ones injected something into Torres' neck. He went limp immediately. There was no spasm or resistance from him, and I could do nothing but watch. They didn't tell me who they were exactly, just that they were my superiors. More cops arrived on the scene not long after this happened, my superiors, and they backed up their story. They calmed me down and shut me up real fucking quick. If they had come out here for this, then I knew I was in deep shit. They told me that I was to leave through the east entrance, and that I only had this one chance. They told me not to look back, and that I was lucky to be given a second chance. One of them pressed a packet into my chest and said, "Read it, sign it." Told me that there would be follow-ups from my superiors shortly. I did not argue with them this time. They walked me past at least 20 people who looked dead on their feet, except they were standing. One guy's eyes were bleeding down his cheeks. Another was biting the edge of his own hand, hard enough to tear. Not one of them looked away from the center of the mall. When I passed the food court, I saw a girl sitting cross-legged on a table, maybe 10 years old, no shoes, just humming to herself. There was blood on her face, but I don't know if it was hers or not. She was holding something in her lap, but I could not fully make out what it was. Whatever it was also covered in blood. I got outside and threw it behind a squad car. Everything in my body was shaking, like I was coming down from something or about to go into shock. I tried to radio in again, but it was a dead channel. Just that constant high whine under the static again. I pressed the panic code twice. Nothing happened. The air outside didn't feel right either. I heard footsteps behind me and turned around fast. It was one of the men in the black coats again, probably to make sure I got out of there and quickly. I asked what was actually happening, but he would not give me an answer. More unmarked vans were starting to roll up. They were matte black with no plates on them from what I could see. One of them hissed. A handful of people in hazmat suits started filing out. Some of them had what looked like Geiger counters. Others were carrying what I thought were defibrillators, but larger, bulkier, and with cables that looked more like restraints. I asked where EMS was. He said there were no injuries. I said there are bodies in there. He looked at me and said again, there were no injuries. He told me he forgot about something and that I needed to take it right now. He handed me a small, sealed foil packet. Dissolve under tongue, now. He stepped closer to me when I gave him a puzzled look. You've been inside. You are contaminated. This will stabilize you. I said, stabilize me for what? He just repeated, now. I did it. I tore it open and let the strip dissolve under my tongue. It tasted like copper and dirt. A wave of nausea hit me almost instantly, and then it passed. And then everything felt fine. You will feel a little disconnected, he said. That's good. That's the filter setting in. I asked what the hell he was talking about. He spouted some nonsense jargon at me that I didn't understand at all, and I can't recall now. My head was becoming kinda light and fuzzy. Something like amnestic bleed and outside your perception, but I could be recalling wrong. When I gave him a blank stare, he told me, keep fucking moving and get out of my sight. I looked back at the mall. Lights were going out, one by one. More vans pulled in. One of them had cages in the back. I don't remember getting home at all. I must have driven, but I can't really remember. Honestly, a lot of my memories from that day are really hazy, and it's a miracle I can remember what I can. Even though I can remember the events, they almost feel not real in my head, like my mind is rejecting them somehow. You know how some people have different levels of imagination? I forgot what it's called, but it's like, some people can visualize full images and places, and some people can only see it partially. Then the really unlucky ones can't visualize anything in their head at all. Usually, when recalling a memory, I am really good at this and can see a full picture, like a full HD snapshot of the memory. With this one though, I can barely get a flash. The memories are there in my head, the words to describe what I saw, the general events that took place, but the picture is not visible. I remember the details, but without actually remembering the details, if that makes sense. Anyway, the next thing I remember is sitting at my kitchen table with a folder open, pen in hand, already mid-signature. I didn't even know what I was signing. It just felt inevitable. Most of the document was nonsense, tons of legal jargon that I didn't understand. I think I got the gist of it though. The next day, Bayside was fully open again. There was no caution tape, no cops, no crime scene. It was like nothing happened. There was no trace that anything occurred that day. Not a single speck of blood or litter or any evidence of the panic that occurred. Even the broken glass from the storefronts was gone. Every pane was replaced. The news ran a segment that night. Minor fire causes evacuation at Bayside Marketplace. No injuries reported. Said something about the fire being caused by fireworks being set off. I think they mentioned having 2 people in custody. Same story in the local newspaper. They showed footage from earlier that day. Crowds walking through the plaza. I called Torres' number that night. Disconnected. I tried going by his apartment, but someone else was living there. They said that they had been there for months. I went to our sergeant the next morning and asked if he'd heard from Torres. He stared at me for a beat too long and then said, "You mean Torres from traffic?" I said no. Officer Marco Torres, patrol. He was partnered with me a few nights ago. He frowned. "You've been solo for the last month, right? Since Morales transferred out." I didn't say anything. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Maybe take a couple of personal days. You've been running hard." I just nodded at him. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I love this village. I've been coming here every summer for nearly 20 years. Everything is close, forests, fields, and a river. It's a fairly large village. The nearest one is about 3 kilometers away through the woods and fields, and the main highway is 15 kilometers off. About 3 years ago, people began buying up the old houses as summer homes. What can you do? Folks get old and pass on. As far back as I can remember, my grandmother was always happy to see us. She loved when her grandchildren visited, always inviting us in with gifts and food. But 6 months ago, everything changed. In early January, she began calling. asking us to take her in. She was getting old, and it was getting too hard for her to live alone. Grandpa had passed away 2 years earlier. She wanted to move in as soon as possible. A little family meeting was held, just Mom and Dad, and they agreed that she would not be a burden. Grandma was kind and generous, and there was enough space. I was renting my own place, and they had a 3-bedroom apartment. But when Dad went to pick her up, he was too late. Grandma had passed away. I will skip the difficult details about organizing a funeral during the New Year holidays. After that, my dad became noticeably more distant. By early May, I started asking about the village, if we were going this year or not. I figured that the house might have already been looted. No one had been there in half a year, but Dad refused. Not just casually, firmly, stubbornly. He did not want to go, and he definitely did not want me to go. He would not even explain why. So I decided not to say anything. I would go on my own with my best friend. I only see my parents every couple of weeks, so they would not notice I was gone right away. I could call them from the village if needed. We packed up some drinks, snacks, meat for the grill, and extra cash since there is a store there, and set off in my friend's old BMW, which he had bought 6 months ago. To get there, you have to turn off the Kyiv-Chernihiv highway onto a barely marked road. Someone might remember it or know something about what happened. From the turnoff, it's about 15 kilometers to the village entrance. It was mid-June, June 15th, 2013 to be exact, and a prime time for vacationers and summer residents, but we did not pass a single car on the road in. The village did not look abandoned. Everything seemed normal at first glance, but something was off. On the way in, we did not see a single person or animal. The store, usually open by now, was closed. It is located at the entrance to the village, but my grandmother's house is near the far end. After passing the store, we drove slower since my friend did not know the road, and it was riddled with potholes that I remembered from childhood. Then I started to notice something strange. A lot of the gates and doors were wide open or broken. Some looked like they had been forced open. Fortunately, everything was still intact at Grandma's house, though the yard was a mess. The grass had grown waist high, the gazebo roof had collapsed, and mosquitoes and midges were everywhere. I knew the house keys were under the barn awning. They had always been there. Not sure if they were the main set or a spare, but I remembered them well. I struggled to get the rusty key to turn, but it worked. We went in and began tidying up. All the tools were kept in the pantry inside the house. By evening, we were worn out and decided to relax. I wanted to show my friend the village, the parts I loved growing up in. We walked to the river at the edge of the village. That is when I started feeling uneasy. Again, we saw no people, no cats. There were usually plenty, no animals at all. The village was completely silent, dead quiet, but how? Just last year, there were summer people, cows mooing, kids laughing, girls walking with boys. My friend lit a cigarette, visibly nervous, and asked, "Is it always this gloomy here?" I said no, that I did not understand what was going on either. We headed back, and when we got to the house, we were stunned. The door was wide open. I had locked it, not with a key, but still. Inside, our things were scattered everywhere. Food was dumped out. The raw meat for the barbecue was gone. I can't say whether fear or anger hit me harder in that moment. I grabbed an axe and checked the whole house, the yard, even peeked over the fence into the neighbor's place. Nothing, no sign of anyone. I had not been especially close with the neighbors, just some elderly folks. Their grandkids were 10 or so, and I rarely saw them, but I decided to ask if they had seen anything. My friend stayed behind to watch the house. An hour later I returned. The door was locked from the inside. I knocked. "Hey, it's me, open up." I heard the bolt slide. When the door opened, my friend was holding a stool like a weapon. He was pale, breathing hard. I probably did not look much better. We locked the bolt again and went into the back room. It was getting dark. We didn't turn on the lights. I sighed and told him what I had seen. In that hour, I had checked around 20 yards. No people. No signs anyone had been there all year. Overgrown grass everywhere. Some doors broken. Some roofs collapsed. I think, in that moment, we both wanted to leave the village right then. But it was almost nightfall, and there were 2 problems. 1, I did not know how to drive. And 2, my friend never drives at night. His vision gets blurry, and he gets tired real fast. He told me what happened while I was with the neighbors. "I locked the door behind you, just in case, and started picking up the scattered stuff. Then I heard the yard gate open. I was surprised. Thought maybe you were just back early. Then, suddenly, and I swear, the yard gate is very creaky, and the distance from the gate to the front door is about 10 meters. Someone started trying to get into the house. I stepped back, because whoever entered the yard could not have gotten to the door that fast. There was no knocking, just someone persistently trying to open the door. The handle was rattling wildly. I grabbed a stool to defend myself. Then the yard gate creaked again, and everything went silent. Half an hour later, you came back. So, you stood in the hallway for half an hour, holding a stool. He just nodded. Then, suddenly, there was a loud knock on the bedroom window at the far end of the house. My friend and I just stared at each other, neither of us daring to check. An hour passed. Darkness had settled. We sat silently, too scared to move. Nothing else happened, just our heavy breathing filling the quiet. Neither of us spoke. I don't know what my friend was thinking, but all I could do was wish desperately for morning to come, for the sun to rise, for us to leave. I wished it all faster, faster dawn, faster escape. Then the car alarm suddenly blared. Their friend's car was parked close by, but there were no trees nearby to cause it accidentally. The alarm stopped briefly, then screamed again, as if someone was standing right next to the car, waiting for the owner to come out. This went on for nearly half an hour. The noise was maddening. I wanted to get up and turn the alarm off, maybe give whoever triggered it a good slap, but something told me we would be the ones getting hit instead. We were sitting near the window in the main room, the one with 3 doors, one to the exit, one to the bedrooms, and one to the closet, when we heard footsteps outside. Someone was walking along the windows, trying to be quiet, but the dry branches snapped under their feet. I wiped sweat from my face. Even though the house was cool, it had not been heated in 6 months. To my surprise, there was no mobile signal here, even though before everything was fine. It was only 10:22 p.m., far from dawn, and no one knew if we would get out of there at all. What if they slashed the tires? My friend asked. What? I perked up. If someone did that, how would we get out? 15 kilometers to the highway, and 500 more to my hometown. He didn't say anything more, but I knew he was thinking it too. The rustling outside stopped. We heard the wind and rain hitting the roof. A thunderstorm was starting, pretty common here. The wind howled louder. The rain poured down. Thunder rattled the windows. The storm raged all night long. Even if someone moved outside, we could not hear them over the thunder and rain. The night felt endless, but eventually it ended, though the light was slow to come. We quietly stepped onto the veranda. The room where we sat had rough curtains drawn. Outside was thick fog. Leaving in such fog, even in the morning, was impossible. Then we heard footsteps again. Someone walking near the house, stepping in puddles left by the rain. Suddenly, someone ran up and slammed the front door hard. The door shook, but it was heavy oak, and the latch held firm. After a few knocks, silence fell again. My heart felt like it would burst or run away from that dreadful place. I don't know if it was a maniac or some creature, but what terrified me was the silence. No wheezing, no groans, no howls, only natural sounds. Crunching branches, the door being tested, the car alarm. I don't remember how noon arrived, how the sun finally shone. After the attempts to break in, my head was pounding, my ears ringing, and I could barely breathe. Probably my blood pressure spiked. When I finally calmed down, the fog was gone. We listened quietly in the yard for half an hour. Then, trying to be as quiet as possible, we unlocked the bolt. My friend opened the door, and I gripped the axe with both hands, ready to fight whatever might be waiting. No one was there. We crept toward the gate. The door did not creak in the damp air, so we bolted to the car. My friend started it, and we drove off. Only when we reached the main road did I realize we'd left the door open and our things behind. I held the axe tightly for the entire 15 kilometers. We only relaxed when we saw dozens of cars and signs of life. We were alive. We'd made it out. The drive back to the city was silent. After a brief goodbye, I went straight to my room and slept through the weekend. It has been less than a week since then. My friend and I have gotten closer, though we avoid talking about that trip. I have not told my parents about any of it. I only asked Dad if we would be going back this summer. He grew dark and said no. Let the house stand as a memory. We won't sell it. I don't know what happened in that village, and I can't find anything online except the vaguest details. but even if someone tried breaking into our house to steal what was there, I would not risk going back again. I'm not good at green text, so bear with me. Keep in mind he died in the early 2000s at the ripe old age of 115, and that is what is recorded. Pretty sure he could have been older, since records in the third world aren't exactly reliable. Be my grandpa. Be in late teens, early 20s. Live in Latin America. Live in a valley. Live off farming and mining. Be absolutely rural. Be absolutely dirt poor. To make you see how backwards that village is, the electricity did not arrive until the 1970s. No gringos, we aren't in Mexico. There are a lot more countries. In fact, we are closer to Antarctica than to the US. Anyways, to live by, they either farm for most of the year or work in the mines. And I do mean work like in the Middle Ages, with pretty much the same tools, pickaxes and the like, all completely manual labor. One day, late evening, going out of what I guess was a 14-hour shift in the mine. Gotta do that daily grind. Other workers are already leaving and preparing to do the roughly 7-kilometer, don't know how much that is in Neanderthal units, walk back to town, walking down the mountains and through the forest. Gramps says he leaves as one of the last of his group to leave. Tries to hurry to catch up to the others ahead of him. Doing that walk alone is hella boring, even more after a long day of hard work and carrying your stuff. I've done it in modern times. I've been absolutely demolished by that walk. Don't know how he did it, and I'm a fairly average guy, 1.73 tall, 65 kilograms. My Gramps was shorter and lighter than me, and had to carry his work equipment, while I just had to carry my ass. Guess I'm a wuss. Anyways, the group ahead of him is a couple of curves down the road. Graham said he could hear them talking, but could not see them, trying to walk faster. Suddenly, he hears someone calling him from the sides, near the road but behind the trees. As you're guessing, this is a rural area in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in the third world. Everyone has a strong, rural accent, but not this time. Said it's a pretty clear, educated, fine voice, like out of the radio with no accent. Gramps pays attention, and out comes a finely dressed guy. Also mentions a faint smell that's out of the ordinary. The man keeps calling my Gramps. Gramps takes a few steps closer. The guy's well groomed, no facial hair, dressed as an aristocrat for the time. Guy tells Gramps he will make him rich if he comes with him. Behind him, there are bars of gold. I have to mention, the mine was used for copper and gold. However, those were not processed there, just extracted and sent off to somewhere else. These supposedly were the typical bars of gold you've seen in media when someone is rich. Gramps notices something is off about the man. For starters, what the fuck is a rich man doing in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, in the most rural part of the continent and at the end of a mine shift? Gramps said the guy started walking closer and began to shapeshift. His breath reeked like cow farts, his words. Legs were twisted. The skin on his face looked like dried out liver. Clothes turned into feathers. And this motherfucker is getting closer to my Gramps. Gramps begins to run as fast as he can. The guys that were ahead are nowhere to be found. Keeps running to the village. Catches up to a group of workers that initially were leaving after him and were now pretty close to the village. No one noticed on the road anything strange. Later in the night, the guys that were ahead told him no one noticed anything weird. Gramps is scared shitless. Had to go to work another day. On the way down, this time with his buddies, decides to go look at the spot where the strange guy was. A dead bird was in the spot the man was. Behind, there was just a huge pile of shit in the place of the gold. Whole bunch of freaky deaky Dutch shit has happened in my parents' house over the past 10 or so years that they have lived there, and continues to do so occasionally, though nowhere near as intense or frequently as before. Here is my first experience there anyway. Be me, 14 years old, living in west coast of Scotland. Moved to a really old house right on the beach. In the garden after living there for a few weeks, playing fetch with my dog. Facing away from the house, my dog facing it. After a while, I throw the ball, and my dog does not even react. Hair spikes up, and he starts growling. He very, very rarely barked or growled. Turn around, and look up at what he's growling at. At my bedroom window, There is a woman dressed in a very dated black dress, with her hair tied in a bun, slightly pulling back the curtains and peering down at me. Panic.gif. She looks at me for a second, then takes her hand down and walks away. Parents are out, front door is locked, the house should be empty. I go in the house shouting to see who is there. Search the house, and no one is there. Tell my parents and they just think I'm talking shit. After a year or so of weird things and sightings of the same two people from multiple people, it turns out that my parents have been experiencing stuff since the day we moved in. My dad had always been the skeptical one, and the first to explain everything, but only in the recent years have we found out that he's been having the craziest experiences out of all of us. There is definitely 2 ghosts in my house. A man with a bucket who has only been seen downstairs, and the woman in black who has only been spotted upstairs. At the peak of the most intense activity, I would have been about 15 to 16 years old,